everyone, and welcome to the second episode of We Are Milton, a
Hello.
podcast. Hello.
Yeah.
A podcast brought to you by the City of Milton. So we're here again today, and we're going to be talking about road projects, some census information, and just a little bit of extra information about the City of Milton.
Yeah. Continuing on the theme of the last one, more about Milton.
Yes. So first things first, though, my mom actually listened to our first episode, and she said we didn't do a very good job introducing ourselves. So we're going to do a little bit of a better job this time. So Al, if you want to introduce yourself,
Sure.
give a little bit of background information.
Oh, background, okay.
Well, I don't know.
I'm Al Hulick. I'm the City Administrator here for the City of Milton, and actually in 13 days, I will have been here for 5 years.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, I've actually lived in Milton since 2012, but it will have been in this position for 5 years. So, yeah.
That's exciting.
It is.
Do you have any big plans for your 5-year anniversary?
I don't believe so. Maybe
Maybe a cake or some
a hat.
donuts?
Yeah, donut. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So you were in Janesville before?
Yeah, I worked in the city of Janesville for 11 years, so I've actually been in local government now for over 15 years.
Wow, that's another great milestone.
Yeah. I actually I surpassed that back in August, and I didn't do anything for it.
Oh,
You know,
it's kind of sad. So I have been with Milton for basically 12 years. I did 2 years of undergrad internship, 2 years of graduate school internship, and then they decided to keep me on full time, and my position has been growing and evolving and changing ever since.
yeah, changed
So-
even since I've been here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my main focus is
You even
right
changed
now,
your name once.
I did. So, Mom, if you're listening again, I hope that's
Thanks for the feedback.
a pretty good introduction for
Yeah.
us. So now into the main topic for
Yes.
today is road
Yeah.
projects.
Yes.
We have some major road projects going on right now on, mainly on Front Street.
Right.
And eventually they'll also move to Windsor Court just down Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
So that includes a full street reconstruction, replacing all the utilities under the street, and then anything else major with that?
Yeah, so for full street reconstruction means basically we go down to the base. We tear off all the asphalt or concrete asphalt in this case, including the curb and gutter and some of the terraces and even some of the sidewalks. So it's a big, disruptive, huge project. Yeah.
And this project, you're also including a connection between the public parking area on the south
Yes.
side of Merchant Row and Front Street.
Yeah, so this project's a little bit different than your average kind of reconstruction project in the sense that we are going to add, as Inga said, a public parking lot connection. It'll be at the same alignment that Ainsley is at Front Street, but go into that Merchant Row parking lot with the idea that it'll provide a relief valve for folks to get in and out of that parking lot, so they're not all forced and kind of funneled down to that awkward intersection there at Vernal, Front, Elm, Merchant Row, like that six-legged intersection there. So give folks another chance to take a different route in or out.
And they haven't started the work on Windsor Court yet, but
No.
that's probably in the next couple weeks. They're trying to get as much done on Front Street as they can before they move on to Windsor Court.
Yep. So as you indicated, they're doing all the underground utilities are being replaced. So that's a very invasive project in which they're going to dig out all of the sanitary sewer and the water main that is in the street, but below the street there, and replace it. And the purpose being is that the utility mains that are in the ground currently were installed 60, 70 years ago. They're undersized for modern standards, and we're actually going to extend it a little bit down on Front Street in order to create a more efficient system in that area along Front and Elm.
And with a complete reconstruction of the street and utilities, as you've said, it's a little bit more disruptive and everything than just a regular treatment for the streets, like a crack filling or chip sealing. So one thing I just want to emphasize is that we really appreciate the residents and businesses on Front Street being so patient and understanding while we work through the process of the reconstruction on Front Street. And we hope everyone on Windsor Court is just as patient with us as Front Street has been.
Nobody likes construction. Everybody who lives in this area certainly is no stranger to the interstate project and how disruptive that has been for the last several years. Well, this is a microcosm of that, but also boom, right in front of somebody's house. So yeah, as Inga said, thank you for your patience and thank you for your understanding. And, you know, we're doing everything we can on our end to keep people up to speed.
So we are also doing a variety of treatments on streets right now to try and stabilize those roads and make sure that they're lasting as long as possible.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about what that process is and what it looks like?
Yeah, you know, no two street projects are the same, as goes with most things, but there are different treatments that you can apply to a pavement surface depending on what level of degradation has occurred in the asphalt itself or in the concrete, but in this case, asphalt. And what I mean when I say that is how you know how good a shape is the pavement in. So if the pavement is in still pretty decent shape, then we can apply a lesser treatment, and typically that is in the form of like a seal coating, which is really like a black film that you put on top of the street. You can do crack sealing as well, which is where you just address it's just like it sounds. You just address those areas in the pavement where the pavement has been broken, with the idea that moisture inside asphalt is bad. So we were trying to eliminate anytime you can get asphalt, moisture inside asphalt. When the street has gone to such a state of disrepair that those treatments are no longer viable solutions, then you would do a mill and overlay. And folks who are living in Milton, that's what we did on Chicago Street a couple years ago. That's what we did on Parkview Drive, where a milling machine drives down the street and kind of takes off that first inch or that first 2 or 3 inches of asphalt and then reapplies the asphalt over the top of it. So a new fresh coat of asphalt. So there's really kind of the 3 phases. There's the seal coating, crack filling, and then there's the mill and overlay, and then there's the full-on reconstruction where you tear up the base too. But there is kind of an interim treatment, and that's what we did on like John Paul. Again, for folks in the area, John Paul, Butin, Morgan, a portion of Madison Avenue, a portion of Rogers, Plum Street, North Street. We did what treatment which is called chip sealing. And so that's where they put down a layer of oil, of kind of sticky oil, and then apply what looks like little pebbles on top of that, and then run a roller over it. And basically what that is it pushes those pebbles, those granular pebbles, and reintegrates them into the underlying asphalt, kind of then increasing the integrity of that.
So on the county portion of John Paul Road, County Y, that's south of Milton, that was also chip sealing.
Correct.
But it looks different than what was done on our portion of John Paul Road.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the treatments there?
Yeah, so we used a different type of granular product than the county did. The county used a pebble, kind of what you would assume pea gravel kind of, which is very round and smooth, whereas we used a much more abrasive type of product. So it's much more irregularly shaped, which allows it to kind of knit itself better into the pavement and be less bouncy. And so we're able to kind of keep it in the areas that we want, and then it knits itself well with the existing asphalt and the other new gravel. So it is different, and ours is a little quieter too. I've noticed when you kind of go from one treatment to the next, it gets a little louder, but you are going faster too. So.
Yeah. So all of those kind of minor treatments are done now, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Except
the exception of we are going to be doing some seal coating on some of the public parking lots throughout the city. Here at City Hall and over at the library, Cross Ridge Park is going to be seal coated. The cemetery is going to be seal coated, and again, that's just like a thin layer, a thin membrane that they put over it. It'll make everything look black again, and it'll look like it's brand new, but it's really. It's not paint, but it's a thick petroleum-based product that tries to prevent water from getting in the cracks of pavement.
So in the coming weeks, watch for that, because it may mean that you're not able to park as close to the door for City Hall or the Public Works facility. Right. So we just want to make sure that people are aware of that potential conflict, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll get that out on the Facebook page and maybe mention it in a future podcast. But that should be coming probably in the next, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, as long as the weather holds. That's the other thing with these types of treatment. They're very weather. They're kind of finicky about the weather. Depending on the treatment. So if the weather holds and kind of stays warm, we'll be able to get it done. But if temperatures start to dip and we get a lot of precipitation and humidity in the air, we may not be able to get to it as fast as we end, and it may end up actually pushing it back until next year. But weather is weather.
You just never know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be as cool as it is today.
Yeah, I don't mind it though. It is
No,
nice, yeah.
I don't either.
Splash pad's still open though.
Yes, Splash Pad is still open. We generally keep it open Memorial Day to Labor Day,
Yeah.
and then September's always a little difficult to predict because sometimes you get an 85-degree day and other days it's 65, and you just don't
Yeah.
know. So we'll be watching the weather and determining when to actually close the Splash Pad at a later date.
Yep.
But back to roads.
Ooh, okay. Yep, sorry, that was my fault.
So let's talk a little bit about how all these improvements have been funded this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a variety of sources that we've used to do the Front Street project, the Windsor
Mm-hmm.
Court, versus the more minor improvements that we've done over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it's transportation. If you pay attention to the newspapers and the television news, transportation and transportation funding is always a hot topic, especially in Wisconsin. My guess is it is in other states as well, but it certainly is here because it's one of the toughest things. It is very expensive. It's something that is used by all citizens in various shapes and forms, whether that's just for general traveling or for commerce, conducting of commerce. So transportation and the transportation network and its infrastructure are very important. I like to call them kind of backbone core functions of government. So funding them is very difficult because it's very expensive, and the level of treatment comes at a different cost. We talked about, like a seal coating, chip sealing, something like that you can do for $20 to $35 a linear foot. If you're going to do a mill and overlay, now you're up into the $120 to $150 a linear foot. If you're doing a full reconstruction, that might be as much as $400 to $500 a linear foot. So those projects, when you think about that, a linear foot, there's 5,280 feet in a mile. Mm-hmm. Now take, $150 per linear foot. For a half a mile of street, and the cost has become astronomical. So it's very difficult to find a reliable funding source for that doesn't take away from another essential service. So we try to use a mix of funding sources whenever we can. We obviously general fund tax dollars, but we apply for grants as often as we can, LRIP dollars from the state. We also can use TIF dollars when applicable.
Just quick, LRIP, what is that for people who don't know?
Local Road Improvement Program.
And that's a state program?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. We can also utilize TIF dollars when applicable. And we utilize the wheel tax dollars. That was something that the council enacted in 2017, so we're in the third year of it. And that has really helped kind of springboard or accelerate our ability to tackle some of these unkept or unmet needs in terms of transportation and infrastructure improvements. The wheel tax is $30 per vehicle. It generates about $140,000 a year, but we're able to use those funds to leverage other dollars like the LRIP money or like the TIF dollars or like general fund dollars. Because again, $140,000 may sound like a lot, but we were able to chip seal and seal coat about 5.25 miles of road for about $210,000.
And that's what, a sixth of the total mile of roads?
Yeah, it was about
in the city?
16% of our roads
Okay.
were touched during this most recent pavement improvement program. And when it's all said and done, since the adoption of the wheel tax, we've been able to address over 22% of our roads in our city. And we're able to do that without borrowing a single cent in order to do that, and without passing a referendum. And some of our neighbors have, floated ideas of referendum. Some of them have borrowed, millions of dollars, and we haven't had to do that. And those costs to borrow or to go to referendum would come at a much, much higher cost than a wheel tax would. So I know it's unpopular in some areas, probably unpopular in areas that aren't going to listen to this. But it really is the most cost-effective approach that we could have taken, and it was one that we talked about for at least 2 years. So.
Well, and you and Dan, our finance director, ran an analysis as well.
Yes.
That having the wheel tax is actually more cost-effective
Correct.
for the taxpayer
Correct.
than having those costs be on your tax bill.
Yep, it may sound counterintuitive, but it is. You looked at the average. We assume the average homeowner in the city of Milton has 2 cars, so the average homeowner is paying $60, and the average assessed value in the city of Milton is about $152,000 for home value. So to generate that amount of taxes, which is generated by the wheel tax would actually cost the average homeowner about $72 a year as opposed to $60 a year. So, dynamics change. Somebody may have 3 cars, somebody may have 4 cars, but somebody may have 1 car, or somebody may have a home that's assessed at $300,000, and by that, the cost would be extra high. So it's a numbers game, but it is when you compare it as close as you can to apples and apples, it is the most cost-effective approach.
Great. Anything else related to roads that you wanted to touch on?
Oh man, we're not done yet. That's the key. We certainly know that, like I talked about, we've touched 22% of our roads. That means 78% of our roads haven't been touched. But I will say every year the state requires that you do what is called PACER ratings, and I can't remember. It's an acronym, but it's pavement. It's how you grade your overall pavement. The shape of your pavement, and that's on a scale from 1 to 10. And generally, anything 7 and above is in good shape. And our average in the city of Milton is considerably higher than what you would expect in other communities. I think our average is actually like 6.3 now. So I'll have to verify that number, but with all the improvements that we've done, our average has gone considerably up to a level that is in really good shape. And again, the more we stay on top of that and the more we increase that level, the less likely we will need to borrow or go to a referendum for street improvements like other communities are having to do. So it's a proactive approach that we will thank our future selves for, as Dan says.
And the more you maintain your roads, the less likely you are to have to do those street reconstructions, those major ones, as often. Yeah,
you can do a chip sealing or a mill and overlay 10 times before you would even come close to the cost of 1 mill and overlay. Mm-hmm. So it's better to kind of stay out ahead of those things.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else with roads? If you have any questions about the road projects or the funding for the roads or anything like that, feel free to contact Al.
Please do.
Or even Dan. He's our finance director. He likes to talk numbers, so he'd be more than happy to walk you through the funding mechanisms for the road projects.
Yeah. And there's there's some big projects that we have kind of queued in for the next couple of years, but some of them are really big projects that are very expensive, and we're going to have to work out how we get that done. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows North Clear Lake Avenue is not in best shape. Everybody knows that portions of Madison Avenue are not in best shape, but that unfortunately is a state highway, so we don't have jurisdiction over it, but we can work with the state hopefully to develop some sort of partnership to get that moved up in the queue in terms of repairs. So, but to do that correctly, that's probably a $3 million project.
Yeah.
So
our last podcast was about 38 minutes long, and we are going to try our best to keep these to around 20 minutes or less.
Yes.
And that is because, according to the United States Census Bureau, their 2013 to 2017 American Community Survey estimates.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the name of it.
Yeah, it is.
The mean commute time to work is 21.5 minutes for City of Milton residents. So we're hoping, the podcast will be a really great resource for people to use while they're commuting to work, and they'll be able to get a little bit of information about the City of Milton.
Yeah. Or if you listen to it on your lunch, you'll be done and you'll still have 10 minutes to go
surf
through
Facebook. Yeah.
Oh.
It's perfect. So that's our goal. Also, with the United States Census, the next census is in 2020.
Yes.
So the City of Milton will be working on establishing a complete count committee, which will be working to raise awareness about the census and make sure that people understand why it's so important and how to complete the form once it's available. And 2020 is the first year that it's going to be online. So it's very important that we get the information out to people, make sure that they understand and they're aware. So if you're interested in being on the Complete Count Committee, let us know. We'd love to have you involved in that.
Yes. Do you know who conducted the first census?
No.
Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, we learned that.
We did. He can dance. He can sing. Yeah. So
we are planning to try and have someone from the census on an upcoming podcast to talk more about the census and the Complete Count Committee.
Yes.
Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
I agree with everything she just said.
Anything else with the census?
No, it is very important, and we want to make sure that we get the word out. That's how all funds are distributed from the federal government. That's why it's important, and we want to make sure that everyone is counted one time.
Exactly. So if you do have any future topic suggestions, let
Yes.
me know or Al know. We'd be more than happy to try and cover those for you.
Mhm.
Anything really.
Anything
related to the city of Milton.
Yeah, anything related to the city of Milton. I think we can. There's plenty more to talk about out there,
Yes.
but we
And
need your help.
Yes, and the council came up with some really great suggestions at the council
Yeah.
meeting last night. I'll be putting the council meeting up on YouTube in a couple hours here, so make sure to check it out if you're interested in watching the council meeting from Tuesday, September 3rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I think that's all we have for today. So thank you again for listening to our second episode of We Are Milton. And we are established now on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We're on our social media accounts, Facebook,
Wow.
YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and we're still working on Apple Podcasts. So
We are famous.
yes. So we'll let you know when we're up on there.
Yeah.
But in closing, we're going to say together, We Are Milton. Okay, ready? So in closing,
We are Milton.